Welcome on Texas football. Time for the Saturday conversation. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by our special guest, Les Koenning, the former Longhorn player, captain of the 1979 team, but also a 40-year-plus veteran of college coaching circles. Been the offensive coordinator at 6 different programs around the country, as well as wide receiver coach for a short period of time at the University of Texas. This episode brought to you by our friends over at Advanced Pain Care, Dr. Mark Malone and his crew. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Les, I've known you for 30 plus of those years, I guess. So welcome into the Saturday morning conversation. Appreciate you joining us, man.
Thank you, Bobby. Look forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to start off and talk to you about Steve Sarkisian and his program. And let's start there, because I've known you for, like I said, a long time. But your dad was a high school coaching legend in Houston area and in Southeast Texas. And I tell you what, I've known you since, I guess, Moby Dick was a minnow. And what I mean by that is I literally, when I was a young kid, I remember meeting you, and I say young kid, 22 years old. I remember meeting you and your dad at the Greater Houston Combine. And your dad was at Cy Creek at the time. And just always appreciate your friendship and your forthrightness through that whole time. And you've always just been a solid person, kind of like your dad, man. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Well, he's been my idol my whole life, and I really appreciate that, Bobby. Good man. I'm very fortunate.
Well, let's start with Steve Sarkisian, if you don't mind, sure. Because you've seen Texas from afar, whether it was when you were the offensive coordinator at A&M or at Alabama or TCU or even Mississippi State. What is it right now that Sark has going on, in your opinion, from a coach's perspective, right? What does he have going on that you like to see if you were a coach? Not necessarily a former player, but as a coach, what does he have that would be something, man, I want some of that as another coach?
If you ever get the chance to see and watch Steve Sarkisian on TV, he does a tremendous job of explaining stuff. And he's pretty upfront and outright with everything. I mean, and that's pretty impressive as a coach, because most coaches don't want to tell you the truth.
Yeah, it's coach speak. They want to do coach speak.
But when you listen to him, you know, he handles himself great with the media. And I think he does a great job with that. Just, you know, you're very envious of that when you look at him as a coach, because he's just watching him on his interviews and stuff. He's polished. He's somebody that represents university very, very well. And of course, he's winning. Winning cures a lot of things.
Gotcha. What about the players? You and I used to talk about this. You just didn't have the players at Texas that you once had. When you were there, captain of the 1979 team, y'all had guys like Kenneth Sims. I mean, you had some real dudes, you know. And then Mac Brown kind of brought it back, had some of those years. And then you were at Texas, I think, in 2015 for a year under Charlie Strong. You didn't necessarily just have those guys. And now it seems like you turn on the NFL draft.
Yes.
There's 1 year, there's 11 guys drafted, and the next is 12. Is it also personnel that he's doing a great job with? Isn't that part of it for a team like Texas?
There's two things: personnel and developing players. You have to do both. And I think he's doing a real good job with that. Obviously, they're winning. You know, and when you can develop a kid and you can recruit a kid, then you got a great chance of being successful.
Gotcha. Is there something that you've seen in that talent pipeline that just you kind of go, okay, they're recruiting at a different level maybe right now than what they had been previously?
There's no doubt. I mean, look at the players that have been drafted in the NFL. Look at just lately we've had a bunch of them out of Texas going to the NFL, and that reminds me of the past years when we were back at Texas and playing. There was tons of kids getting drafted, going to the NFL, and playing for a long time.
Yeah. Question for you here as it relates to that. The quarterback position was a tough one for Texas for about a decade and a half. You went through that a little bit at your time at Texas. Is it his ability to attract the Quinn Ewers and then an Arch Manning and then the guys he's got behind him? Isn't that part of the sauce, right? I mean, if that makes sense.
Yes, it is.
If you don't have a quarterback these days, Les, it's just harder and harder to play a winning game of college football. I mean, that's That's got to be a piece of it.
It is. Quarterbacks make you run. I mean, when we had Dak Prescott at Mississippi State, obviously it was pretty easy. And you're the leader of your team, and they're very impressive now. They handle the locker room for you. They do a lot of things off the field that are very, very important. And I think that's part of winning. You don't always win. On the field, it shows by points. But in order to get all those points, you have to have great leadership, great locker room. You got to have people getting along. You got to have people solving problems. And I think that's very important. The quarterback position is the key probably to your whole team, along with there's some defensive personnel too. The quarterback can speak up, but there's have to be some enforcement also.
Enforcement is a kind word, I think. Let's talk about quarterback because, look, about that. You talked about having coached Dak Prescott. You had Stephen McGee at Texas A&M. I got to sidetrack you on Stephen McGee first.
Sure.
Have you ever had any quarterback get hit as hard as Stephen McGee was by Michael Griffin in that game and still get back up and go for the next? Because I thought Stephen McGee got rocked in that game.
He is absolutely – and he's a big kid. He's not a small kid when you see about stature. But number one, he's a tremendous leader. He doesn't want to lose at anything. I mean, we used to go play ping pong in the off season, and me and him would get in the biggest arguments over who won the game in ping pong. I mean, he's very, very competitive. And, we were very fortunate when I was at A&M, we had recruited Stephen, we'd recruited Gerard Johnson, and we recruited Ryan Tannehill. And so all those kids were back to back, and they were about 2 years apart. So it fit real well. They were going to get their opportunity as they came up. One of the ones that's amazing to me is, we signed Ryan Tannehill. And Lucci. We all know Lucci. He's the spokesman for the Aggies.
Yeah.
Lucci came over to me and told me I was crazy. He said, "You're absolutely crazy. He has no stars." I said, "Lucci, were you at camp?" I said, "This kid was unreal. You ought to see him spin the ball. He can run. He's smart." He says, "Les, what are y'all doing?" I said, "I'm telling you, the kid's really, really a good player." And the only pass he threw in high school was actually to turn around and pitch it to the tailback. That's all he did because he ran a wing tee offense. But when he came to camp, he was something special. And Stephen was too, and so was Gerard. The neat thing about all three of those kids is all three of their dads were coaches. So it was a really, really neat thing to have them in they understood winning because winning was longevity and being able to stay around. I think that's very important.
Yeah. I asked you that because Michael Griffin in that Texas versus A&M game, y'all were running him, and Michael Griffin was lighting up Stephen McGee time after time, and Stephen McGee just kept – he literally was, from a Texas perspective, one of the more impressive performances. It wasn't in a winning – that game wasn't in a winning effort, but my God, he took a beating and kept on going. That was impressive. I'll always remember that. I've got to ask you, though, now, you've seen Texas play. Mm-hmm. You've seen Arch Manning, a couple times now. What is it about him? Do you feel like he has some of those intangibles you talked about based on what you've seen from him?
We'll soon find out. I mean, I think, you can't put the cart before the horse. I think he's very impressive, first of all, by the people that he's been around, his parents and all his relatives. I think that name holds a lot to it. I think it's very, very impressive, and they've all been winners in the family. But the one thing you have to find out in football is he has to do it. He has to prove it. He has to get out there and do it. We can talk about it. We can hype it up. We can do everything we want to, but it's going to come down to performance. I think that's the big thing for him. And he's young. I think the one thing we need to realize, he has not played a whole bunch. This will be his first year out there. Will there be mistakes? I'm sure there will be. And, quarterbacks learn from their mistakes. And the other thing a quarterback has to have is a short memory. I mean, he has to have one that, the next play is the best play. Let's don't worry about the past. And I think that's things that we need to look at when he gets on the field. Let's don't, he's going to grow and he's going to get better. But, Bobby, one of the things in coaching that has been around since you mentioned it, since Moby Dick was a minnow, there's three ways to win a national championship. And we've all had the opportunity. I mean, we went undefeated at A&M one year, but that year we went undefeated. we had the best team money could buy. It was really I was there with RC, and we were really, really good, but we tied one ball game, but we couldn't even go to a bowl game. Jackie had just left. But the other two times that I was at the University of Texas, when we played Notre Dame, and then I was a GA, and we played Georgia for both those times and lost both of them. But there's three things, and Coach Royal, Coach Akers, all the coaches I've been around have always said, you have to have a great defense, number one. You got to be able to run the football, number two. And you got to be sound in the special teams. Those are three things that you need to understand, because there's going to be a day when a quarterback walks out there, okay, and either receiver drops the ball or something doesn't happen, or it's, the end of the game, right? You got to run the ball. You got to be able to do it. And if you look back over the records of Texas and Texas A&M and Alabama and all those teams, that there was a great running back that showed up too now. That took a little pressure off that quarterback and let him grow. I think that's very important that we need to see. Yeah, you'll see we have good receivers too. I mean, they're really, really good. A lot of them have been drafted. But there's going to be a time in the game where you're going to have to put the game away. I can remember when I was at A&M and we played Texas with Stephen McGee in Austin. And we controlled the clock at the end of the game where we never gave the ball back to Texas and beat them in Austin. And, those things are critical. I don't think we'd have won the football game if we were tossing it all around the park at the time, which we could have. And one time we miss a ball or it's deflected or something, you're in trouble. And, that's been a staple for most coaches. And the one thing they can't really get is when they have to run that football. And I think one of the things at the University of Texas that's been pretty impressive too are the offensive linemen that they have there. You know what I'm saying? I think that's going to help Manning too, in his growth and development.
Yeah, they've done a good job overall in putting the pieces around and all of that stuff. I think that a college coach like yourself, guy that's been around for 40 plus years in the game, understands that it takes more than just one player.
That's right.
It's not. And then they got to go out and prove it, to your point. So it's a lot of different pieces to go together. All right, I've got some more questions I want to talk to you about and ask you. And I want a little reminisce about some of your former teammates, et cetera. But first, I want to hear this from our friends over at Advanced Pain Care.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
I appreciate Dr. Mark Malone and his group at Advanced Pain Care for their sponsorship of On Texas Football. Les, let's go to something else. Your time at Texas playing mostly for Coach Akers or for Coach Akers. You were all Southwest Conference, I think, second team or honorable mention one year. You were a punt kick returner. You were a wide receiver. All at 155 pounds?
Sopping wet, 155 pounds, yes.
You'll be happy to know that Texas earlier this week took a young man out of Willis, Texas, that weighed about 156 pounds last year.
Oh, so golly, got me beat.
No room for you small guys out there.
Right. That's exactly right. That's right.
Hey, going back to that, you guys, two of your former teammates, laid to rest recently.
Sure.
Steve McMichael, Hall of Famer, and then Kenneth Sims.
Yes.
And I know that you guys got a chance, you and some teammates got a chance to see Steve McMichael about a year ago. We talked about that. And then Kenneth Sims here recently with his memorial service there in Austin. Tell folks a little bit about Steve McMichael and Kenneth Sims, if you would. Let's start with Steve McMichael, because a lot of people remember him from his wrestling days.
That's right.
Some remember him from Texas, and some remember him from the Chicago Bears. How do you remember Steve McMichael?
Oh man, Steve was a phenomenal football player, first of all, and he just scared you. He scared you when you walked in the locker room. I mean, he had that ability to get ready to play, loved to compete. When you looked at it, his nickname was Bam Bam. We all called him Bam Bam.
Not Mongo, which is what he got in the pros, I guess.
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, you go in the weight room and I mean, the bar was bent over so much. Dana, it took two people to spot him on the bench. He was just so strong, just a phenomenal player, and played the game like you love to play it. I mean, there was never running around of a block or anything like that. He just dominated the front in front of him. And you knew when you had Steve on your team that, wow, you had a chance, you were going to win. I mean, it was just remarkable. Some of the things I can remember, I lockered next to him before a game. And I used to go in there and just kind of tease with him and say, hey, Steve, you think you're going to make a tackle today? And he'd turn to me, and them veins would pop out of his head. Those necks would get up, and I would find the quickest exit I could find around there. And people were laughing. What's he doing? He's chasing Les out of here. I said, look, I did my job. I got him ready to play. Let's go.
That's awesome. What was it like seeing him be put into the Hall of Fame? Was that kind of a good feeling as a former teammate, you and guys like Steve Massey, Vance Bedford, seeing that happen for him?
Oh, it was. It really was. I mean, it's kind of a funny world. Steve got a chance to play in the NFL. Brad Shearer was there, and Brad had gotten hurt, and then they took a chance on Steve, and Steve just absolutely killed it. I mean, it was unreal. I got another story about Steve that I think was really funny. Steve was dating a young lady, okay? And I was at the time at the University of Alabama, and one of the players was actually talking about this young lady that he was going to talk with and see, and it was Steve McMichael's girlfriend at the time. And I walked up to the guy and I said, do you enjoy living? Do you like life? I mean, is that one of your priorities here? He said, well, I said, you have no clue what you're getting into. My suggestion is you stop and be very polite and walk away.
I love it.
So he was feared all over the place. I mean, he really was.
Yeah.
And, and a really, really good guy. I mean, good teammate, absolutely fun to be around, and really, really fun to watch.
Kenneth Sims Memorial, I guess, was about 2 weekends ago, right? Right before they had the spring. It wasn't a spring game, more of a spring gathering this year with the whole not having a spring game anymore. You guys were up there on a Thursday or Friday, I think. Yeah, a lot of people showed up for Kenneth Sims. I know you told me that a lot of teammates from multiple different years and whatnot. What do you remember about Kenneth Sims, one of the only number one pick overalls for the University of Texas?
Extremely talented. I mean, not only was he big, strong, but extremely fast. I mean, when he walked in, he was lean, he was fast. He's one of those guys that probably could play in any decade. He was that athletic. And the funny thing about both of those guys, one came from Freer, Texas, which is a small town. The other one came from Cossie, Texas, which is a small town in Texas. And both of them were just phenomenal players, but a little bit different. Steve was one of these guys that when you lined up in front of him, he was just so not necessarily massive, but strong and quick and elusive and could throw you and move you. Where Sims was a little bit elusive. He could line up and run and cover sideline to sideline. And both of them were really, really neat guys. I mean, they were very, very good people. I mean, that was a talented group. There was a lot more other kids in that group too. I'm sure you know about Kiki Diala and Steve Campbell. I mean, we lost Steve too, by the way.
Yeah,
brother. I mean, phenomenal guys. I mean, for example, with Steve Campbell, him and Tim came over my apartment, and me and my wife were moving, and so we lived on the third floor of an apartment complex. And so they said, hey, we'll help you move. So they come over. I grab the dolly. I'm going to get the washer and the dryer upstairs and dolly it down. Going up the stairs, and one of them has the dryer in his arms, and the other one has the washer in his arms, walking down the stairs. I'm with an empty dolly, okay? I go, holy cow. So we got it, Les. Don't worry about it. I said, wow. Phenomenal. Just phenomenal. You don't see that. A washer. Grab a washer on the third floor and bend your back and walk down the stairs. That was Tim Campbell.
Yeah, that wouldn't work for my back at any point.
No, I mean, but those are the type of guys that were there. I mean, they were phenomenal and really, really good people.
You think about your time in college football at Texas, et cetera. It's a new dawn, right? With NIL, recent like 4 or 5 years ago, transfer portal is all over the place. Give me some general thoughts, in your opinion, on all of it. I mean, you and a bunch of guys you played with, you played for a scholarship,
That's right.
3 hots and a cot.
3 hots in a cot, and that was it, brother. We were happy to do it. We really were. We really were.
What's it take? And you spent, roughly 40 years of your life coaching that way too. So what do you make of this right now?
NIL, name, image, and likeness. I think it's something that's given a kind of a bad name for football. You know what I'm saying? I think people don't exactly like it. They love the chance that people had a little bit more loyalties to their school and stuff like that, rather than the mighty dollar. I mean, that's how we were all raised, and that's how it's come about. But the sad thing about it that people need to realize, it's become law. So law is going to happen, and it doesn't matter what you say, you have to participate in it. So if you're going to participate in it, why not be the best? Why not have the best NIL? Why not have the ability to buy whatever you want to do? I think the University of Texas has that ability with their alumni and the people involved in athletics. I think they can do that. And that should never be an excuse at the University of Texas, in my opinion. So we have to deal with that. Do I like it?
What about the transfer portal? I mean, how do you, I mean, that's got it, because back when you were around and when I first got into this, a player could transfer, but he had to sit out a year before he could play again. And that was a real damper on the idea of even transferring. So players had to stick it out. But what do you think about that immediate transfer and eligible, and as well as the transfer portal and being able to do it like that? Is that, coaches move all the time. That's one thing that I say. I mean, you as a coach could pick up and move if you got a better job offer.
Right.
Can't players? What are as an old guard kind of guy, what are your thoughts or combat to that?
This would be if I could make a rule for it, I'd do this. I'd say that you can only transfer when you're a senior. Okay. Because either you've decided by the time you're a senior that you're not playing and you can go to a place that you can play, or you stay there and work harder and get better and get on the field. I can give you a story. When I was a true freshman, I walked in as a true freshman at the University of Texas, was playing quarterback at the time, and Coach Akers said, "Hey, we're going to have a scrimmage, and we're going to, however that scrimmage goes, the quarterbacks are going to be aligned." So I went out there and had one of those days that I could have thrown the ball behind my head and it was going to be completed. Just a great, I really felt like I did. And so I felt good about my position, playing there. So I get a call from Coach Akers and he says, "Les, we're going to move you." I said, "Coach, did you watch the film?" I said, "Were you there?" I was at the film. He says, "We feel like you have a better chance of starting at receiver for us, and we would like to try that." Well, first he said, we want to look at you at DB. I said, "Okay, Coach, what position?" He said, "Free safety." He says, "You're going to play behind Johnny Johnson." I stopped him right there and I said, "When will I play?"
Yeah.
He says, "Well, we'll move you back to offense so that you can still be involved and possibly move you back to quarterback." So I'm really depressed. I go back to my dorm room and I'm depressed now. I'm thinking about going somewhere else. And my roommate, Bert Vasu, was a linebacker, and he was in the room there with me. And so I go over there and I pack my bags up. I got my little suitcase and everything. And Bert says, "Les, where are you going?" I said, "I'm going home." I said, "This is bullshit." That's exactly what I said. I said, "I'm going home. This is bullshit." He says, "You're going to sit your little ass on that bed and not say another word." I said, "That's bullshit." He says, "Now, Les, now look at me and look at you. Who's going to win this fight?" I said, "Well, obviously you're going to win the fight." I said, "But you will go to sleep sooner or later." He stayed up that whole night, and I stayed at the University of Texas. And I really think that it was a great learning point for me, because not everything happens the way you picture it when you go to university. But nowadays, guess what they can do? They can leave and go somewhere else, and they don't fight through those problems. I think fighting through that, it's helped me so much in my later on life. It's helped me in coaching. It's helped me with a relationship with my friends, my wife, and everything. You have to go through some hard times in order to win. I truly think that, and it'll happen with the University of Texas, there's going to be 2 to 3 situations there that they have to overcome that will determine the outcome of their season.
That's going to do it for today's Saturday conversation. Thank you, Les. I'll be calling you. You know that. Enjoy your time on the golf course. If you guys are out and near a golf course, it's possible that Les Koenning is there each and every day. I call him, and he's literally saying, hold on a second, I got to hit this ball. Les, thank you so much. Thank you also to our friend, Dr. Mark Malone over at Advanced Pain Care. If you need help, make sure you reach out to Advanced Pain Care, many different offices around Austin as well. Les, thanks for your time, buddy. You have a good one. Hook 'em horns, man.
Hook 'em.